Hey guys, I'm hanging out with Jeremy Malick. Jeremy, tell us who you serve with. Do you own the company,
I do.
the ministry? Tell us about it.
Yeah, I'm the founder of Church Coach Ministries, and we started about 9 years ago. And we work with churches in four distinct areas. And those areas are we do build out designs for churches. And really, what we do with that is really reimagine the space through the eyes of the guest and what they will experience. And we focus on relationship connecting areas and also we focus on the ministry flow facility. And then we do a stewardship training with churches, and then we do an assimilation training with churches as well, where we really go far beyond guest welcoming and we build teams without bottlenecks for churches, and then also really get people in the congregation to think missionally without them even realizing they're doing it. And finally, vision campaigns, which we're going to talk about in
Yeah.
depth here in a minute.
So the spaces, so kind of walk me through each of those. So you're going into a church, you're saying, here's your space, and you're moving things and helping them use their space to the best
Yeah,
ability.
so we don't do design new builds. What we
Okay.
do is we take existing church structures and maximize the space. One of
Okay.
the areas that we really perfect is kind of the lobby flow and how do we utilize that for multifunction and
Okay.
all those different pieces.
What are some things that you've seen in churches that are maybe common? You put your coffee station in the wrong place. You put
So what I always say to churches is when you walk in your front door, there's four things you should be able to recognize. You should be able to see where the restrooms are. You should be able to see where the children's check-in station is.
Yeah.
You should be able to see where the auditorium is and also the refreshment area.
How important are signage, your visual appeal to the room? How important are, all those things to knowing where I'm going, knowing how to get to my next place?
Those are hugely critical. And one mistake churches make is they install their signage when nobody's in the room.
Mm.
And what I find often is they actually put the signs too low because
Okay.
when the space is filled with people, now you've got a different level of viewing standpoint. So,
That's interesting.
yep.
Do they make their own? What is a bad sign, bad signage? What is it going to do,
Well,
from a flow standpoint?
really, you're not concerned with the people that are actually within your church walls because they understand the flow of the building. They know where things are. This is really to allow the guests to be very comfortable in the environment. And restrooms are a big one.
Yeah.
And they're ones where from the lobby, even if you
Yeah.
have a building that's dysfunctional and your space, your bathroom space is down the hall, you need
Yeah.
to visually represent that within your lobby where that is.
Yeah. Yeah, bathrooms and kids check-in.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many times when my kids were young to find we would visit churches and to find the kids check-in, was a huge deal.
Yep.
If that was a frustration from the parking lot to finding where I need to go, it was it was a ding, it was a notch
Absolutely.
on that church.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's get into visual media some.
Yep.
How does that I know you guys work on vision campaigns as well.
Yep.
How do you guys do that with churches? And then how do visuals play a role in that?
Sure. So what we do is we tell a church's story. So we have a videography team that is just phenomenal. And what we do is a mini documentary film for a church. And really, everything we do is through story, through loving people in relationship with Jesus Christ, and through relationship, really. And to convey that story well is so important. So when we go through a process of doing a video with the church, what we do is we go through a conversation with the church and talk about what are the impact stories. And in developing those impact stories, what we find is there's a thread. And what that thread is within the video really captures the heart of the people and really engages them into what has the church been doing over the last several years? How have they been impacting people for Christ, and how have they been helping the families that come to the church and that sort of thing?
Give me an example of a thread that you've found on a couple of these videos.
Sure. So we had a project that we did. The one that comes to mind is we had a project with um, a food ministry, clothing bank,
Hmm.
nonprofit, and they had a gentleman that they helped that was homeless. And he talked about how this center came through and got him a job and how he wanted to work but could never figure everything out to get a place to live. They provided a place to live, all these things. So his testimony became the thread throughout the video that we kept coming back to as the story built.
Hmm. Would you do a vision campaign with a church or nonprofit without using a video now?
We would not.
Why not?
Because they're so effective. You have to have that medium to pull it off. And the fact of the matter is a lot of churches think, well, we'll just do a video on our own. Well, there's a real skill set to being able to do a campaign video. It's very different than just your regular type of video that maybe you would do in a church, because of that. You really have to demonstrate three things in the video. You really have to demonstrate the need, the ministry impact of the church, and you have to have an ask in the video. You have to be direct with people and just ask them for what you're asking them to be part of. And that's why we call them vision campaigns, to tie them into the vision of the church.
So you require that?
We require it. Absolutely.
Very interesting. What other ways has visual media been a part of what you guys do?
So we developed, as you'll see here, the 21-day campaign. And what that is a shortened version of our extended campaign. It covers a 3-week time period where people go through a 21-day prayer journey. But we have 3 videos that we've done that are 6 minutes long that play within the service. And they're very impactful. The first one talks about what is it like to hear God's voice? And the second one is all about the roadblocks that the enemy puts in our path. And then finally, we talk about the abundant blessings that Christ has for our lives if we're obedient to him. So we use media all throughout that entire concept.
Are there other pieces of media in the kit, or is it mainly that vision video?
Sure. Well, there's printable items. Everything as far as calendars to pledge cards. We include manuals within there. And then we have a leadership video where we walk people through the entirety of the process using media. Yep.
Why do you do what you do? What keeps you passionate?
Sure. Well, a calling upon my life has been to impact churches through my giftings. The interesting thing is God's kind of been setting me up for this my whole life. And I grew up as a church planter's son. We started 7 churches growing up. By the time I was 18, I got my business degree and went into banking. And so I ran my own mortgage company for 11 years. And God put a call in my life in 2007. And I went out, and of all things, I was part of a church plant as an executive pastor. And I got to do all 4 skill sets that I do with churches now at that very first church I was at. And rest of it's history, but it's been a phenomenal journey.
What would you suggest to ministry leaders or church plants? What are some things that you're seeing in the space that is a common thread of mistakes or things that they could do better?
So one thing with church plants is the concept of how do we connect with people where they're at. It's one thing in this day and age to think, okay, we can get a church plant, we can put signs out, maybe we're meeting in an elementary school and we just think people will show up. Well, times have changed, and we really need to meet people where they're at. And that's one of the things we do through the assimilation side of things is how do we love people in a relationship with Jesus Christ where they're at, whether they end up coming to the church or not, and making that impact on their lives.
How can people find more about you guys and get involved?
Sure. Well, you can visit our website at churchcoachministries.org. You can also email me at jeremy@churchcoachministries.org as well. And I'd love to set up a Zoom call with you and your leaders and talk more about these things.
Yeah, awesome, man. Thanks so much for your time.
I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
This has been a podcast presentation of Church Visuals. Executive produced by Carl Barnhill. Edited by Mario Franco. Title and show graphics by Angie Lomas. For more resources to help you visually communicate the gospel, visit churchvisuals.com.